Lord Jarmo received a desperate letter from Viscount Helco, pleading for help as the ducal house of Royas closed in on his noble house. Yet Jarmo saw little reason for concern. With Helco's endless misconduct and drinking habit, his downfall had been a matter of time. But if Helco was already on his way out, Jarmo figured he might as well squeeze some value from him before the curtain fell. Meanwhile, heartbroken and furious, Serafina was tearing apart pillows in her room, venting all her frustration over Lord Julius. Her tantrum was only getting worse when her brother Jarmo finally walked in and told her to stop before she ended up filling the entire house with feathers. Serafina immediately turned to him, seeking reassurance, and asked whether she was truly lovely. Jarmo answered without hesitation, assuring her that she was beautiful enough to be compared to an angel. Serafina already knew she was beautiful, but that meant little when Julius had openly chosen Elsa over her. Seeing how heartbroken she was, Jarmo comforted her by insisting that she was more precious than any jewel, making it almost unbelievable that Julius had failed to recognize her charms. His words only made Serafina's emotions overflow, and she finally broke down, convinced that Julius was completely blind to her charms and swearing she would never forgive him. Watching her, Jarmo quietly thought that Julius had certainly damaged his relationship with Serafina, but perhaps that relationship could still be of some value to Julius. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Prince Alexis praised Julius for exposing the scandal involving the falsification of her purity, noting that he had contained a serious breach of trust with remarkably little damage to the kingdom. What surprised Alexis more was Julius himself. He usually preferred to manipulate matters from the shadows, so seeing him act directly was unusually bold. Julius simply explained that confronting such a foolish noble had left him with little choice. Alexis then commended his other investigative efforts and instructed him to remain focused on castle affairs for the time being. Julius accepted and prepared to leave, but Alexis suddenly remembered that Julius had attended the recent soiree with his wife and began asking about their progress. Julius immediately cut him off with a polite excuse and walked away. After Julius left, Alexis was left alone with a knowing look, quickly realizing from Julius's reaction that something had definitely happened between him and Elsa. Meanwhile, Julius walked through the palace corridors, already dreading the approaching end of the year. The coming weeks meant a mountain of paperwork and endless royal events, while Alexis somehow remained carefree through it all. His thoughts were interrupted by a lively group of ladies surrounding Hannes, showering him with homemade cookies, scones, and attention. Hannes happily accepted their kindness until he suddenly spotted Julius approaching and immediately called out to him. Once the corridor finally emptied, Hannes handed Julius a carefully wrapped gift and asked him to give it to Elsa. It was a newly published book by one of her favorite authors, chosen specifically for her birthday, which Hannes revealed was on the 10th of White Orchid month. He explained that Elsa loved fantasy and romance stories, even if she would never spend money on something purely for amusement, and he doubted she would ever ask Julius for such a gift herself. Hearing this, Julius suddenly remembered how Elsa had made sure to wish him a happy birthday, yet he had never once thought to ask about hers. The realization left him quietly lost in thought. Hannes, noticing his reaction, encouraged him with a playful show of support, only for Julius to dryly realize that Hannes was nothing like his sister. Late that night, Elsa noticed how consumed Julius had become with work. Even during dinner, he had barely looked up from his documents. When she brought him tea, Julius was so absorbed in his paperwork that he hardly noticed her presence. Elsa quietly placed the tray down and reminded him to take proper breaks before leaving for bed. Only then did Julius finally look up and realize she was already walking away, apologizing for not noticing her sooner. Elsa simply assured him that she had only come to bring him some tea, hiding any disappointment behind a gentle smile. Julius stopped Elsa and handed her the gift Hannes had entrusted to him, explaining that it was a book chosen especially for her birthday, though he was giving it to her a little early. Elsa was genuinely touched by the thoughtful present, but Julius had one more surprise for her. He wanted to spend her actual birthday with her, just as she had made his birthday special. The unexpected invitation left Elsa flustered, but her expression soon softened into a radiant smile. She happily agreed, saying she would look forward to celebrating the day together, before leaving with unmistakable excitement in her heart. Opening Hannes's gift, Elsa was delighted to find the new book she had been eagerly waiting to read. But as she admired it, another thought suddenly crossed her mind. This would be the first birthday she had ever celebrated with someone outside her family. Julius's promise to spend the special day with her echoed in her thoughts, sending her heart racing for reasons she couldn't quite understand. Her birthday would fall during the blooming of the white orchids, and somehow, knowing Julius intended to share that day with her made it feel more special than ever. Several days later, Elsa's birthday finally arrived. Yet before they could depart, Julius had to leave for an important meeting that had been scheduled for the day. He reassured Elsa that he had already arranged a place for her to visit and asked her to wait there for him. Excited by the thought of spending her special day together, Elsa happily agreed. Julius soon departed in his carriage, while his butler and maid could only marvel at his unusual enthusiasm, unaware of what he had planned. As Elsa watched him leave, she noticed snow beginning to fall and quietly hoped it would clear by evening. Later that day, Elsa arrived at the place Julius had chosen, but he had yet to appear. Her coachman advised her to remain inside the carriage, and Elsa patiently settled in to wait. She had expected that Julius might be delayed, so she wrapped herself in the warm blanket her parents had given her and opened her favorite book. As she reread the familiar story, Elsa became absorbed in its tale of an arrogant prince cursed to become a rose, his castle slowly consumed by thorny vines. Everything changes when a florist's daughter discovers the beauty hidden within those thorns, teaching the cursed prince that they exist to protect the fragile stem and help it grow stronger. Touched by her kindness, the prince realizes the ugliness of his own arrogance and accepts his fate. But when the girl discovers a single blue rose blooming among the thorns and gently touches its petals, the curse is finally broken. The prince returns to his human form, and the two fall in love, eventually finding their own happily ever after. The cold made Elsa sneeze, bringing back memories of the winters she had spent with her parents. She had always dreamed of a warm, loving marriage like theirs. Yet when she married Julius, she believed she would simply fulfill her duties as a duchess. But now, her husband had slowly become someone truly precious to her. Before she could finish the thought, the carriage door opened and Julius appeared, slightly out of breath. He apologized for being late, then hurriedly told her they had to leave. Elsa blinked in surprise as he pointed toward the magnificent building ahead, the National Arts Theater. Julius revealed the tickets and finally unveiled his birthday surprise, the opera based on the very storybook Hannes had given Elsa. Elsa was immediately delighted. She had never seen an opera or even attended a venue this grand before. Seeing her genuine excitement, Julius quietly felt relieved that he had chosen well, though his reaction only left Elsa a little flustered. But with the performance about to begin, Julius urged her to hurry, and she happily agreed. Taking Julius's hand, Elsa entered the grand auditorium, where the magnificent opera soon began. From the very first scene, she was completely captivated, her eyes sparkling as she took in the music, the stage, and the story she had only ever known from the pages of a book. The experience was unlike anything she had imagined, and her growing excitement made it impossible for her to hide her happiness. Watching her enjoy the performance so wholeheartedly, Julius found himself smiling as well. When the final act finally came to an end, the entire auditorium erupted into thunderous applause, bringing the unforgettable performance to a close. After the performance, Julius and Elsa stepped outside, still savoring the evening. Elsa thanked him for taking her to such a wonderful show, though she worried that she had been the only one truly excited. Julius assured her that he had enjoyed it too, but then admitted that he was the one who should be grateful. Elsa had taught him that birthdays were worth celebrating, and without her, he might never have felt the desire to make someone else's birthday special. He then wished her a sincere happy birthday, leaving Elsa flustered with emotion. But there was still one surprise waiting. The household staff had prepared a birthday dinner for her as well. Elsa finally understood why everyone had been acting so strangely throughout the day. Julius assured her that the household staff had put considerable effort into preparing the celebration, and Elsa's thoughts drifted to her parents and Hannes, knowing they must have been worried about her. When their carriage arrived, Julius gently called her home, and Elsa followed with a quiet smile. For the first time, she realized that despite being far from her family, this birthday had been dazzling in its own way, a truly special day she would treasure. A few days later, Elsa returned to the seed shop, carefully choosing spinach, broccoli, onions, carrots, and broad beans for her growing garden. When the shopkeeper asked if she had finally decided, Elsa happily explained that Julius had helped her prepare the soil, so she was confident they would grow into delicious vegetables. Seeing her enthusiasm, the shopkeeper offered her a seedling of a new rose variety that could bloom throughout the year with proper care. The moment Elsa saw it, she was reminded of the roses from the opera she had watched on her birthday. With a delighted smile, she decided to take one home as well. After finishing her shopping, Elsa happily made her way home, pleased with the seeds and rose she had picked out. But before long, she realized she had taken a wrong turn and wandered into an unfamiliar part of town. Ahead, she noticed a church and was surprised to find a children's home attached to it. Seeing the children reminded her of the church on her own estate, making her wonder how everyone there was doing. Then her attention was drawn to a banner outside, one announcing that they were looking for a teacher and seeking donations. A heated argument suddenly erupted inside the church. An elderly nobleman was berating the sister for allowing the orphans to eat without working, insisting they should earn their keep as porters or chimney sweeps. The sister firmly defended the children, arguing that their education mattered more than sending them off to work. The nobleman scoffed at the idea, pointing out that they had no proper teacher and coldly warned that he wouldn't care if the entire facility were demolished. Before the sister could respond, Elsa stepped forward and introduced herself as a member of the ducal house of Royas, explaining that she had seen their notice seeking a teacher. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Zeno could hardly believe how much Julius had changed. The man who once accepted every business trip without hesitation was now determined to avoid them simply because he hated the thought of leaving his mansion empty for weeks. He even planned to take time off once the current matter was settled, leaving Zeno utterly convinced that marriage had transformed him. Then Zeno mentioned spotting Elsa alone near a church earlier that afternoon, looking unusually deep in thought. Julius immediately sighed, realizing that his wife had once again ventured into town without an attendant, and his mind was already occupied with what she could possibly have been thinking about. Zeno teased Julius about hoping to have dinner together that night, instantly catching him off guard. Julius quickly denied that was what he had been thinking, but Zeno knew better and confidently saw straight through his excuse. Later that evening, Julius returned home and was greeted by the maid, who informed him that Elsa was waiting in the living room. But when he entered, he found her fast asleep on the sofa, an unusual sight that immediately caught his attention. Although the maid mentioned that dinner was ready and offered to wake her, Julius quietly declined and decided to let Elsa rest a little longer. Julius quietly draped his coat over Elsa and watched her sleeping face for a moment. Before long, she stirred awake and was surprised to find his coat around her and Julius standing nearby. Realizing she had fallen asleep while waiting for him, Elsa immediately felt embarrassed and apologized for her carelessness. Julius, however, only looked at her gently and assumed she must have been exhausted from her outing. Elsa explained that she had gone out to choose seeds and seedlings for the garden, then happily added that the opera they had watched on her birthday had inspired her to buy a rose as well. Since it could bloom several times throughout the year, she was already looking forward to watching it flower and hoped Julius would enjoy it too. Julius listened quietly, simply acknowledging her excitement. But then Elsa remembered the children's home she had discovered and decided she should tell him about it. She hesitated, searching for the right way to bring it up, only for her stomach to suddenly growl loudly. The sound left her completely embarrassed, and she lost her chance to speak. Julius suggested they have dinner, and Elsa was quietly touched that he had waited for her, even if he insisted he had only been finishing some work. He assured her that the worst of the workload was over and promised to visit her garden once things settled down. Elsa happily agreed, deciding to wait before telling him about the children's home. Meanwhile, Jarmo received a report from his attendant about Elsa's recent activities. As he listened, one particular detail made him pause. Elsa had apparently taken an interest in becoming a teacher at a children's home.